Hello and welcome to the video by TrumpExcel. I'm Sumit Bansal, and in this video I'm going to give you an overview of the M language. M is the programming language that powers the Power Query engine, and it stands for mashup. So M word came from Data Mashup. Now, Power Query has this programming language in the backend, and anything that you do with the Power Query interface gets recorded as a programming language, as a sequential step in the programming language in the backend. So in this video, my intent is to show you how M language works, show you the syntax, how it's structured, and how you can use it and read it when you work with Power Query. So here I have the sales data. Let me open this data in Power Query. So I would go to Data tab and click on From Table Range. Now this opens the data in Power Query, and I have two steps applied here. The first one is source and the second one is changed type. So Power Query automatically tries to identify the data types and change these data types according to what it deciphers these data types are. Let me delete this step so that I only have one step here. And now let's go back and have a look at the back end and see what M code has been generated by Power Query for the things that we have done so far. And just to reiterate, all we have done so far is mentioned a source, which was an Excel table, and imported the data from that source into the query editor. So to open the M language code, I would go to the View tab, and here I have Advanced Editor. And if I click on Advanced Editor, it opens this dialog box, and you can see this is the name of my query, data1, and here I have these 4 steps. Now in these 4 steps, the first one is let. Now this is a word, this is a statement that would always be there when you start a query. So in any query that you anything that you do in Power Query and any code that is generated, that would start with let. Now it's not mandatory for any code to start from let, and you would see later in this course that you can have variables above this, but anything that is automatically generated starts with let. The second line here is source is equal to excel.current workbook and then the name of the table. So in this case, what Power Query is doing is it is saying that the source of this data is an object in this current workbook. So we've already seen excel.current workbook. It gives us the objects in the current workbook, the tables, the named ranges, the connections. And when it has the list of all those objects, it's saying in all those objects, the object that we need to consider is data1, the table data1, and fetch the content from this object. So this single line of code means that fetch the content of data1 in the query editor. Now in is the step which would always be there. It would always be the second last line in your code, and the last line in your code would always be the last step in your code. So this is a word here which would always be the same as the last step. In this case, the last step is source because we only have one step here, but this is the code that Power Query has generated. Now let me do one thing. Let me copy this and put this in a text editor so that I can show you how this code would change when we do something else. And let me have this here. I'll have it in the side. Another thing that you need to know is that Power Query is case sensitive. We've already seen that the formulas are case sensitive, and so is the M code here. So whatever you do here, if I type this and I make this small d, this would not work. It has to be capital D. Also, when you're writing the code or when you're reading the code, you would notice that it says no syntax errors have been detected. This would mean that the code is fine. At least the syntaxes are fine. In case you don't see this, then there would be something missing and you need to check the syntax. You need to check whether everything is fine or not. Now, this is a very simple example. Let me click on done and let me add a step to it. So what I would do is I would come to the date column here, go to transform, and here I would change the data type from any to date. So this is one thing I do, and as soon as I do this, a changed type step has been added in the applied steps here. Now let's go back again and have a look at the code. And you can see, because I did something additionally, I added one more step here. This line of code has been added. Now let's compare this with the previous line of code, and this is important because this will tell you how the code changes. So the first line is the same. The second line has one minor difference, and the minor difference is that of a comma. You can see that now there is a comma here, and this is because in Power Query M language you need to have a comma in every line except the last line of code. And when I say the last line of code, I mean this code block, everything above in statement. So in this case you can see that there is a comma here, but there is no comma in the last line. So always remember that there needs to be a comma in every line except the last line. In this case, if I remove this comma, see what happens. It would show me an error here. It says token comma expected. And if I add a comma here and I add a comma here, I expect this to show me an error again, which says a comma cannot precede a in, which means that this cannot have a comma before it. So we'll remove this. Also, let's see what's the change as compared to the previous code. You can see here it says hash changed type in double quotes, and this happens because there are two words in the step name, changed and type. If there is only one single word, then there would not be any hash sign, there would not be any double quotes. But because there are two words, or if there are two or more than two words, it would always have hash, and the entire name of the step would be in double quotes. And this says this is equal to table.transform column types, and this is a function. This is a function that is telling us that we are transforming the column types, and this is what is important, which is source, and this would always be the previous step. So how would Power Query know that this step has to change the data that comes from the source step? It would have to connect these two lines, and it connects these two lines by using the name of the previous step in the next step. So in this case it is using source, and it is saying that any data that comes after this step has been executed needs to be used in this step. And then in date column, the data type need to be changed to date. So if I go back here, you can see the last line also changes. So in this case, this line is introduced, this is brand new, but this line changes. This part here always needs to be the last step. So in this code, in the first code where we only had source, the last step was source, but in this case the last step is changed type. Now let me click on done, and let me show you something. If I rename this and I make this change type as one word, and now I go back to advanced editor, you can see that the hash sign and the double quotes are gone, because now this is a single word, and also this last part is now a single word. Now let me click on done, and let me do something. I would add a column here, and I would multiply the price with the quantity. So I would go to add column. Here I would click on custom column, and let's call this column calc for calculation. And here I would say quantity multiplied by price. And now when I click OK, it inserts this column. And now you can see I have three steps here. Now let me go back to view advanced editor, and you can see in this case now we have three steps, which is something that I'm sure you must have expected by now. And in this case, the first two steps have a comma, the last one does not have a comma. The last line refers to the last step, which is added custom. Because there are two words, we have a hash sign and double quotes. And the most important part is this step, the previous step, is mentioned in the next step. So changed type is mentioned here in added custom. So this would mean that in added custom, use the output that you get after the changed type step. So after the changed type step, whatever is the data, that data is used in this step. And here it says table.add column, which is to add a new column on this data type. So whatever is the data in this data, add a new column with the name calc, and there is a new word here, which is each, and each would stand for making this operation that follows it for valid for each row, for each cell in this column. So this would mean that quantity into price needs to be done for each row in this column. Now again, you can close this and this would work. The last thing that I want to tell you in this M code overview is that you can use line breaks. So the way Power Query and M language works is that it would read this code from here till a comma, and it would identify that this is one sentence, this is one line of code. Then in second line of code, it would read this from here till it encounters a comma, so it would know that this is second line of code, and then it would read this line till here, and as soon as it comes to in, it would notice that this is the last line and it cannot have a comma. So in this case, if I come here and I, let's say, introduce a line break, it would not matter, it wouldn't hurt my code, because my code starts reading this from here, it reads this, moves to the next line, moves to the next line, and when it encounters a comma, it realizes that this is one single line of code that needs to be followed, and then it moves to the next one. So even if you have line spaces so that you want to make your code more readable, you can do this. That's it in this video. I hope you found this useful. Thank you and have a nice day.